What happens when Cobra takes on the #1 player in all of Parallel? What's up, gamers? On today's episode of the Freeroll, I'm going to give you some deep analysis of a recent ranked game against MrKvak, the #1 player in all of Parallel. KOBRA Kommander wants to own the early game. Lemieux's free Vanguard token certainly helps, but we also want to flood the board with some small units. Here, I'm going to mulligan 3 very good cards, but they are all 3 and 4 energy cards, so I don't really need them yet. I consider tossing back the heavy weapons team here as well because I prefer a 1 energy unit that can attack on the first turn, but I have to play a turn 1 unit, and it's at least a harder one to remove. MrKvak is also playing Shroud, so I expect and want to remove a turn 1 Singularity Steward. That is easiest done when you have an extra attacker. The Combat Veteran is an ideal turn 2 play, especially against Shroud, because Shroud likes to play Life Siphon or Void Touch Novice on turn 2, and that is not going to be enough to remove the Combat Veteran by itself. So that means it has a decent chance of surviving so that it can start getting buffed by attacking on turn 3. So we're going to keep the Combat Veteran here as well. The Longbow Personnel Carrier is a nice turn 3 play, and when you can follow with the Grizzled Scout on turn 4, that's even more true. But it's more important here to get a 1 energy units, so we're going to toss them all back. I land 2 Crimson Fleet Machinists, which is very nice. I also get another Combat Veteran. Now I have that 1 energy attacker that I wanted, plus some drawing power. I also get to go first, which we love. Against Shroud, they love to play the Honored Steward in round 4, and when I go first, that means I can immediately respond with Lemieux to destroy it and get my unit back. I bank the Combat Veteran, play the Crimson Fleet Machinist, and we draw our Lancer tank, which is great, even though it's earlier than we really wanted. But we've got our 2 attackers to respond with on turn 2. Let's see what MrKvak does here. Now, MrKvak is going to respond here with a very common and smart play. He's going to play a Mercenary Gunslinger. That's going to eliminate my Vanguard token and even the playing field a little bit. Very common for players to use that against our deck. It's a good way for them to counter our start. And we love our start so far. Now, we draw a Squad Trader, but we've already got 2 Crimson Fleet Machinists, so I'm not really hurting for drawing power yet. We're going to bank that instead. I do consider playing both of my 1 energy units here, but I still prefer the Combat Veteran for the reasons we detailed earlier. I could take his Mercenary Gunslinger here, but I prefer to do some face damage and force him to trade with me. He can't kill anything with the Merc Gunslinger alone, and I prefer to force my opponents to attack my units instead of the other way around. We honestly love our start so far, but MrKvak is taking some time here and considering how he wants to respond, and he's going to pull out a honestly shocking turn 2 that I have not seen before. He plays the legendary Lord Harf. He's a 1/3 2 energy unit that makes our effects cost 1 more and his cost 1 less. This is really nasty for us because we like to use quite a few effects in this deck, and we're about to draw one that we want to play. But it's even nastier because he's going to be able to play a PS8 launcher for free now, which means he's also going to remove the Crimson Fleet Machinist. Let's check it out. There's the free PS8 launcher, and unfortunately for me, he's actually got 2 of them in his hand, so he's able to hit the Combat Veteran and then attack it with the Mercenary Gunslinger as well. On turn 2, with just 2 energy, he's able to play a legendary unit as well as 2 PS8 launchers, dealing 8 damage plus an attack. He clears my entire board, and that honestly stinks. He has spent a lot of cards in order to do this, But that's not typically a big problem for a New Dawn deck because New Dawn is going to refill his hand once we get to the mid-game. It does leave him with just 3 cards here. This honestly stinks. In most cases, I'll have at least 1 attacker left here, and that would mean that another 1 energy unit plus the improvised tactics that I drew would be a really nice turn 3 here. But Lord Harf makes my effects cost more, so my only option is really to bank the improved tactics, play both 1 energy units here, and try to rebuild. MrKvak responds with an Engine Whisperer, which is extra nasty because this is going to reduce his effects by another 1 energy, and it allows him to play something like the Life Siphon for free. That is going to come out next. Yep, we lose our combat. We lose our Crimson Fleet Machinist. He still has 1 energy, plus he's gonna be able to bank still. He does that and plays his Void Touched Novice, which deals 1 energy and ends his turn. Unfortunately for MrKvak, he has set himself up perfectly for a Neutron Bomb, and we are holding it in our hand. It's going to cost us an extra energy, but it's still a great value. We're going to do 3 damage to Lord Harf, 2 damage to the Void Novice, and 1 damage to the Engine Whisperer to wipe his entire board. Now this board wipe is extra awesome here because I've caught MrKvak holding only 1 card. He's going to draw on the next turn, but he's also going to need to bank, so he's likely only going to have 1 card to play against us on the next turn, which means it's not that big a deal that I just have my 1 non-attacking unit left on the field. After banking, he's only got 1 card. It is the Fanatical Crewman. That is going to put 2 cards from the top of each of our decks into the Singularity. That's can be annoying because he can sometimes catch your Lancer tank or other important cards in there, but we're already holding it, so we don't really care. We're going to check anyways. A Marcolian Bannerman and a PS8 launcher, not that big of a deal. The Heavy Weapons team has already triggered Assault for us here, so I'm able to play the Longbow Personnel Carrier and the Trigger Happy Trooper on the same turn. I don't get to attack here, but I've reestablished board control with 5 units once this is all said and done. On top of that, I'm still holding my Lancer tank, a Grizzled Scout, and Lemieux himself, so I've got lots of options to respond with depending on what he's able to pull out. 27 to 29 is way too close at this point in the game typically, but I really like my position here a lot. And because his hand is really, really low and he now has enough energy as well, he's going to very likely get his New Dawn into the mix here. And that is exactly what he does. It's very smart because not only is it able to pull a card from his Singularity and start rebuilding his hand, which is the only way that he's going to be able to catch up at this point, I also have several units on the field with just 1 health, and after his crewman attacks my defender, that means that 3 out of my 5 units will have just 1 health, and when he brings the New Dawn back from the Singularity, it's going to randomly deal 1 damage to one of my targets. So there's a high likelihood that it's going to kill one of my units when that happens. That is certainly what he is hoping for here. I play enough New Dawn that I know that's what he's trying to do. So we're going to work around that a little bit. Turn 6 is super duper vital here. I've got lots of options and I need to start building pressure fast. The New Dawn is going to recover his hand quickly, so while I have many units, they're all very small, and that means that my window is likely also very small. I play the Crimson Fleet Machinist first here because I want to see what card I draw. I could have done that before banking as well, so keep that in mind. I get the Claymore Artillery Gun. I consider playing the Lancer tank here, but I prefer the Grizzled Scout because it's going to allow me to easily remove the crewman and keep my defender in place for another round. I decide to trade both of my 1/1 units here instead of the Trigger Happy Trooper because that is going to reduce the number of 1 health targets left on the field. It's going to have just my defender left with 1 health, so odds are low that his New Dawn is going to be able to kill anything. Had I sacrificed the Trigger Happy Trooper instead, I would still have 3 1 health targets, and it ends up hitting my Crimson Fleet Machinist, so no big deal. That worked out by playing the numbers. Now, he still has 21 health, which doesn't seem too bad here, but I've got a big board, and there's no way that he's going to be able to get rid of everything. He used the New Dawn to pull his Void Touched Adept out of the Singularity. That gets rid of one of my units. But he has spent all of his energy here, and that leaves us in really nice shape. He's going to bank a card, then he's going to send his New Dawn back so that it is protected, and we are in great shape. When you're going against Shroud, turn 7 is a key one, because once they get to 8 energy, they may have the option to play Demolecularize, which is going to banish the entire field. So that is his best chance to catch up. That also means that we need to finish the game before that happens. That also means that it is now time to really let it rip. So we are going to bank our Fixer. We don't need that anymore, although we could have banked a Claymore Artillery Gun as well. In fact, I actually did change my mind there, but it really doesn't matter. We're going to attack, trigger our assault, and play the Lancer tank here. This is going to deal a lot of damage and put us in a really nice position to finish the game off. Grizzled Scout brings him to 8. The Lancer tank is going to do 4 more damage directly when it gets played, so he's down to 4 HP. And we have 5 units on the board. This is going to be difficult for him to deal with, but he is the #1 player for a reason. He's already surprised me once in this match, and I am not celebrating yet. He plays the Engine Whisperer. A Singularity Steward is coming out next, and then he's going to play 2 Erasures to take out my scariest units. There's the Steward, Erasure, goodbye Lancer tank. That is always going to happen against Shroud. And his last card is another Erasure, so goodbye Grizzled Scout. Another buff for a Singularity Steward. This looks scary, but he still can't stop us. He tries to attack my Trigger Happy Trooper here. I'm going to defend, but it really doesn't matter because either way, he takes one of those units. I still have 4 left on the board. He doesn't know it, but I've also got some face damage in my hand, so he concedes, knowing the game is over, and we have taken down the #1 player, MrKvak. Does this mean that I'm the best parallel player in the world? Of course not. Going first is a big advantage, especially when you're running the KOBRA Commander deck. New Dawn is also a very favorable matchup. In fact, I saw MrKvak's name pop up, and I saw the Paragon he was playing, and I immediately hit the record button because I fully expected to win this one. I've got about 120 ranked wins with this deck so far, and I've lost to a very popular New Dawn deck just once. I drew very poorly in that one and made a mistake, so in my opinion, it barely matters who's playing. But MrKvak made things difficult anyways, and while 26-0 looks pretty dominant, especially on turn 8, this is actually quite slow for this deck. In fact, if I'm not holding the Neutron Bomb for turn 4, this might have turned out completely differently. Either way, I love when I draw the best players, and this was a super fun game. I can't wait for the rematch.